community of Pennsylvania, presidents of the Federations of Vietnamese American Communities of the USA, and the founder and the advisor of the Republic of Vietnam Next Generation. A distinguished community leader, Mr. Phan is widely recognized by his dedication to public service, youth leadership, development, and advocacy for the freedom and democracy and the human rights in Vietnam. His work continues to inspire and mobilize Vietnamese Americans to engage in civic life and champion of the cause of justice both at home and abroad. Please welcome Mr. Hong Phan, and please excuse me for the last one.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. Members of Congress, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the organized committee, it's a both great honor and privilege to welcome you to this meaningful gathering as we commemorate the 31st anniversary of Vietnam Human Rights Day. Today, we are united not only to reflect on the strides made in promoting human rights for the Vietnamese people, but also recognize that much work remains. Fundamental liberties, freedom of religion, speech, and expression are still being denied to many in Vietnam. Our gathering reaffirms our shared commitment to uphold these essential rights and to amplify the voices of those who are silent. Before we begin our program, we would like to express our sincere gratitude to those who made today's event possible. First and foremost, we extend our heartfelt thanks to Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia and Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania, co-sponsor of this important event. We are honored by their continued leadership and look forward for their participation and remarks. We are also grateful for the presence and support of Acting Deputy Assistant Secretary Julie Turner, Ambassador Julie Turner, as well as many members of Congress who have long championed human rights and ensure it plays a priority in both domestic and foreign policy agendas. We warmly acknowledge the partnership of key organizations such as U.S. Commission on Internet Religious Freedom, Victims of Communism, Memorial Foundation, and many co-sponsoring institutions whose advocacy bring global attention to injustice and strengthen accountability. We are especially honored to welcome delegates from China, Laos, and you present here underscore the shared aspiration for those across the globe who are engaged in the pursuit of freedom, dignity, and justice. To our guests and participants, whether you travel from across the country or join us from abroad, people from Paris, I know that's okay, from France, thank you for coming. Please accept our deepest thanks for your steadfast dedication to the cause of human rights. Lastly, we'd like to acknowledge and commend the many individuals of our organization team on the right-hand side or maybe somewhere in the building whose tireless effort have made this event possible. Thank you for your presence, your commitment, and your voice. Let us continue our important work, united in purpose and unwavering in our resolve to advance freedom, democracy, and human rights for all. Thank you very much for listening. And want to make sure the program keep continuing. I'd like to introduce the keynote speaker today. Ambassador Julie Turner currently serves as an acting Deputy Assistant Secretary of State in the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights and Labor, DRL, at the U.S. Department of State, overseeing the Bureau of Africa, East Asia, and Pacific International Labor Affairs, and Multilateral and Global Affairs team. Ambassador Turner previously served as the U.S. Special Envoy for North Korean human rights issues from October 2023 to January 2025. Ambassador Turner is globally recognized as an expert in the area of human rights and democracy, and has worked over the past 20 years to strengthen democratic institutions and promote human rights throughout the East Asia and Pacific region. She serves as the Office Director in DRL's Office of East Asia and Pacific, and previously was the Director for Southwest Asia at the National Security Council. Early in her time at State Department, she serves as Special Assistant to the first U.S. Special Envoy for North Korean human rights, and works as a program analyst in the Bureau of Information Resources Management Office of Diplomacy. As career civil service employee and former Presidential Management Fellow, Ambassador Turner has dedicated her career to advance human rights around the world. Ambassador Turner is graduated from Pepperdine University and University of Maryland. Please join us to give a warm, enthusiastic welcome to Ambassador Julie Turner. Let's show our appreciation with a big round.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm so pleased to be here with you today. As my bio reads, I've been working on Southeast Asia for many years, specifically on U.S.-Vietnam relations, and so it's a real pleasure to be here today with so many members of the Vietnamese American community who have dedicated your own lives or suffered directly the human rights abuses that we're talking about today. And so thank you all for being here, and thank you all for the work that you do. I would also like to thank the Vietnam Human Rights Day Advisory Board for helping to organize today's event, as well as our distinguished moderator and speakers for sharing their powerful testimonies with us today. And also to Senator Tim Kaine and Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick for co-sponsoring this year's commemoration. Thank you all. Friends and colleagues, it's an honor to be here to commemorate Vietnam Human Rights Day and to discuss this topic of paramount importance, the state of human rights in Vietnam. Over the past 3 decades, we have witnessed significant progress in our bilateral relationship with Vietnam. Our partnership has grown stronger, and today Vietnam is one of the United States' key partners in the Indo-Pacific region. We have a robust bilateral relationship, including our partnership on dioxin remediation and the removal of unexploded ordnance. These initiatives show the U.S. commitment to deepening our ties and building a foundation for a better future. Education and cultural exchange programs have also played a vital role in strengthening our relationship. Thousands of Vietnamese students are studying in the United States, gaining valuable knowledge and skills that they bring back to Vietnam. These educational exchanges foster mutual understanding and create lasting bonds between our peoples. The United States and Vietnam have been working together to address common security challenges such as maritime security, disaster response, and peacekeeping operations. Our cooperation in these areas contributes to regional stability and promotes a free and open Indo-Pacific. While these achievements reflect the strong relationship between our countries, it's essential to acknowledge that our relationship has areas where we must do more to make progress. One of those most critical areas where we must make progress is human rights. The America First policy under the Trump administration emphasizes the importance of safeguarding American interests. Human rights are intrinsic to these interests, as intrinsic to these interests, as reflecting a commitment to freedom for all individuals. By advocating for human rights globally, we promote stability, prosperity, and security, key components of our relationship with Vietnam. We recognize that Vietnam has made significant strides in improving the lives of its citizens, including reducing poverty, expanding access to education, and improving healthcare. These achievements are commendable and reflect the Vietnamese government's commitment to the well-being of its people. At the same time, we're concerned and would like to see more progress on protecting freedom of expression, freedom of religion and belief, and the rule of law. These are rights and principles that must be upheld. First, freedom of expression is a cornerstone of any free and just society. When individuals are free to share ideas, it fosters an environment conducive to innovation, economic growth, and technical advancement. In Vietnam, however, the right to freedom of expression is under threat. Journalists, bloggers, and human rights defenders often encounter censorship, harassment, and imprisonment for expressing dissenting views. Vietnam continues to use vague national security provisions to restrict the exercise of freedom of expression, which has led to a troubling number of cases of harassment, unjust arrest, and harsh prison sentences targeting human rights defenders, journalists, religious freedom advocates, and everyday people who peacefully express their views. Human rights organizations estimate there are approximately 170 unjustly detained political prisoners in Vietnam, including approximately 40 journalists, 5 of whom have contributed to Radio Free Asia and Voice of America. We urge the Vietnamese government to release unjustly detained political prisoners, to allow greater freedom of expression, and to reduce restrictions on the press and online platforms. We are also concerned that these acts of censorship often extend beyond Vietnam's borders. I'm deeply troubled by reports that Vietnamese authorities continue to coerce, harass, intimidate, surveil, and censor dissidents and activists in exile for exercising their rights, including reported incidents of transnational repression targeting U.S. citizens. I know many of you have also shared harrowing experiences and described the far-reaching negative consequences of transnational repression on your own lives and those of your colleagues and family. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge Boat People SOS, a US-based organization, and the contributions of Director Nguyen Dinh Pham, a US citizen who has publicly shared his experience as a victim of this overreach. The United States prioritizes the safety of all U.S. citizens and will continue to push back against governments that arbitrarily and unlawfully surveil, threaten, and attack Americans who are exercising their universal human rights. We are also concerned that the government of Vietnam maintains significant control over religious practices and that Vietnam's laws include vague provisions to restrict the exercise of freedom of religion or belief in the stated interest of national security and social unity. Members of religious groups without government recognition continue to face government harassment, including, in some cases, physical assaults, arrests, travel restrictions, and property seizures or destruction. We further urge Vietnam to take steps to address our human rights concerns and to ensure all individuals can practice their religion or belief without interference. Finally, I would like to finish today with a challenge to each person in this room that you continue to make your voices heard beyond Vietnam Human Rights Day. As Vietnamese American citizens, you have a unique perspective and a powerful voice in shaping the future of US-Vietnam relations. Your experiences, insights, and advocacy are invaluable. By engaging in dialogue, raising awareness, and supporting initiatives that promote human rights, You bring a unique and powerful perspective that has a meaningful impact on the lives of people in both countries. The relationship between the United States and Vietnam is a testament to the power of reconciliation, cooperation, and shared values. Together, we can continue to build a partnership that is not only strong and prosperous, but also rooted in respect for human dignity. By advocating for human rights, we promote stability, prosperity, and security, benefiting both Vietnam and the United States. The voices of Vietnamese Americans play a vital role in this advocacy, bringing personal experiences and influencing policy. Let's continue to stand firm in our commitment to human rights, ensuring that every individual can enjoy the freedoms and dignity they deserve. Together, we can build a world where human rights are respected and our shared values are upheld. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Turner. Everything she said today reflects what went on yesterday as we, the Vietnamese community, commemorate 50 years the fall of Saigon. And here she is walking with us, together with the Vietnamese community and also other community who suffering under communist regime. And once again, thank you to be the voice for us. Thank you. The following segments would be the award ceremony, which we would like to dedicate to Mr. Mark Rubio. And for his award presentations, he's a distinguished. It is a pronounced honor for me, on behalf of organizing committee and the Vietnam Human Rights Day May 11 organization, to stand before you today to present this award to a leader whose unwavering commitment to human rights and democratic values that inspire people across the world. The Honorable Marco Rubio, Secretary of State of the United States, has long been steadfast advocate for freedom, justice, and the rules of law, not only within our borders, but especially for those who living under authoritarian regime. Senator Rubio's, now Secretary Rubio, have consistently championed the cause of oppressed people, calling out abuse, standing with political prisoners, and advancing legislation to hold violators accountable. His leadership in sponsoring and supporting key initiatives such as Global Magnitsky Human Rights Accountability Act and Countering Transnational Repression Act, the numerous resolutions defending freedoms of religious, freedom of the press, and civil society has given hope to countless individuals who otherwise have no voice. Your dedication has not gone unnoticed by the Vietnamese American community and by all those who care deeply about human rights in Vietnam. From defending prisoners of consignment to advocating of an open internet and religious freedom, your voice have carried the cries of the voiceless in the hall of power. Today, we are proud to present you with this award in recognition of your tireless advocacy, moral courage, and enduring support for the universal principle of human dignity and liberty. Mr. Secretary, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for standing up with us, and thank you for believing, like we do, that freedom is not privilege for the few, but the right for all. Please join us to welcome Ms. Turner in representing Mr. Mark Rubio for the award. Thank you, Ms. Turner, again. Due to the time constraint, we would like to introduce Dr. Eric Patterson, President and CEO of the Victim of Communism Memorial Foundation, to the stage. A seasoned foreign policy expert, he previously led the Religious Freedom Institute, advocating for the global religious liberty through education and training. Dr. Patterson has also served as the White House Fellow, worked at the U.S. Department of State, and spent over 20 years as commander in the Air National Guard. An accomplished scholar, he has authored over 20 books in ethics, national security, and international affairs, including Just American War and the Reagan Manifesto. Please welcome Mr. Eric Patterson.
Well, I'm deeply honored to be here today, and I thank you for adjusting the schedule. My daughter is a sophomore at West Point, and catching a flight to go be with her right after this. And I'm very proud of her choice to serve our country. Yesterday was a very powerful day, April 30th, and I was honored to be with so many of you at the Lincoln Memorial, that great testimony to human freedom, and to hear your personal stories about Vietnam, about your own family, about your cousins, your brothers and sisters, your parents. And I think it's very fitting that just a few moments ago we heard from Ambassador Turner in speaking very clearly about the human rights challenges in Vietnam. Today, I won't go through them. She said them very well. What's interesting is if you read the State Department report on human rights for last year, this is the statement that jumps out right at the beginning of the report. It says, the human rights situation, let me quote it, there has been no significant change in the past year in the human rights situation in Vietnam. They could print that every year for the past 50 years. And for North Vietnam, they could print it for even longer. Well, as many of you know, at the Victims of Communism Foundation, we do education. In fact, our mission statement says our mission is to educate every generation about the terrible crimes, history, ideology, evil practices of communism. One of the ways we do that is at the Victims of Communism Museum. And if you haven't visited, especially those of you from California, from Texas, and from other places far away, and you're in town for a few days, come and see us there, right at McPherson Square, just 2 blocks from the White House. And there's a beautiful exhibit that the Vietnamese community from here in the greater Washington area has put up. Please come and see us this week. Well, we're educators, and so let me just tell you very briefly a common misperception that the students that I talk to have about Vietnam. And the misperception that we fight against is this. They don't understand how this war that's a part of American history and Vietnamese history, they don't understand how it started, and they have a faulty view of what happened 50 years ago in April of 1975. Here's their faulty view of how it started. They have some sort of view that America was a colonial power, and that all the people in Vietnam were trying to get away from America's colonial power. They've never heard of the 1954 international meeting that sought to bring peace to the region and resulted in the Geneva Accords. And here's what's so fascinating when I explain it to them. U.S. policy so believed at the time that the Vietnamese people would choose democracy, that the U.S. opening position at the Geneva Accords was to move quickly towards unification of Vietnam because democratic elections would bring democratic people to power and would protect human rights. You know what the position of Beijing and Moscow was? They told the people in North Vietnam, no, keep it divided so that we can keep control, deepen our control of the North, and then we'll use subversion and violence and we'll take over the South. The Western view, and the view of so many people in Vietnam, was that the natural course of history would be towards greater freedom, greater rule of law. But my students don't know that. We have to constantly be explaining to the students they have a wrong view of the 1950s and the 1960s. And then the second thing that I find, this misperception in American youth that I need your help in explaining to them, is they do not understand what happened in 1973, in 1974, in 1975. They don't understand what happened to your families. So they have this view that somehow there was a negotiation, and then that what happened in 1974 and 1975 was the natural course of events of simply the majority of Vietnamese absorbing South Vietnam. They do not know about attacks from China, for instance, at sea in 1974. They don't know that North Vietnam promised in a peace treaty in 1973 to observe only peaceful means of seeking unification. The students don't know that. They don't understand that there was an internationally signed treaty, that there were international observers. They have a mistaken view that it was just the will of the South Vietnamese people to ultimately to be absorbed. They don't know any of the tragedy, the violence, the horror, the torture, the re-education camps. At VOC, we're telling them. We're telling your stories to the next generation of students so that they can have a right history about what has happened there, about the victims of communism, but also to rededicate the next generation to try to inspire them to this idea of a peaceful, just, free, rights-loving, rule of law, democratic Vietnam in the future. That's our hope and that's our prayer. Thank you.
Please allow me to translate somewhat everything that he said. Thank you, Mr. Patterson. Thưa quý ông bà, quý anh chị, ông Patterson là một người rất là nổi tiếng trong các cái công cuộc đem sự thật về tội ác cộng sản. Hiện ông là người đã support Vietnamese community của chúng ta ở tại vùng Hoa Tiền Đống này là về cái viện bảo tàng, và đã gần 6 tháng nay thì ở nơi đó thì chúng ta không chỉ có người Việt Nam của mình và có cả những các quốc gia khác cũng là nơi để họ đem tiếng nói sự thật tội ác cộng sản. Thì một lần nữa xin được cảm ơn ông. Sau đây con xin mời cô Destiny. May I present Miss Destiny to the state? She will go over the brief histories of May 11, and Destiny is a president. Again, she's the president of the Vietnamese community in Richmond. Please welcome.
Thank you. On behalf of the board member of the Human Rights, I will read the history of the May 11. Honorable Member of Congress, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. On May 11, 1990, Dr. Nguyen Đang Nguyen, on behalf of Nonviolent Movement for Human Rights in Vietnam, courageously released a manifesto calling to the Vietnamese government to respect the fundamental human rights, adopt multi-party political system, and restore the people's right to choose their leader through free and fair election. For this peaceful and principled act, Dr. Wei was arrested and sentenced 20 years in prison in 1991. In recognition of his courageous and brother called justice, May 11 was officially designated as the Human Rights Days in the Commonwealth of Virginia in 1994. This effort was led by Assemblyman Alan Mayer and supported by 8 co-sponsors of the Virginia General Assembly. In his statement, Assemblyman Mayer affirmed that Dr. Way's manifesto echoed the value found in the U.S. Declaration of Independence and our national commitment to liberty and justice. Shortly after, thanks to the determined advocate of Vietnamese American community, the movement gained national momentum. Congresswoman Leslie Bond, she's sitting right in front of us, and Senator Charlie Robb introduced the resolution H.R. 333 and S.R. 168 that will later merge into a joint resolution S.J. 168 on May 1994. And President Bill Clinton signed this resolution into law by Public Law 103-258, officially designate May 11 as the Vietnam Human Rights Day in the United States. Since that day, Human Rights Days has served as a powerful reminder, both within Vietnam and globally, of the enduring struggle for freedom of thought, political participation, religious liberty, and human rights dignity. It stands as a symbol of solidarity with those who continue to face oppression for symbol seeking most basic human rights. Each year, we gather not only to commemorate this day, but to renew our shared commitment to support Vietnamese people, aspiration for free and democratic futures. The journey continues, and our voice, united in purpose, remain essential is that ongoing struggle. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Destiny. May I have the honor to invite Ms. Leslie Lapkin-Byrne onto stage. Ms. Leslie Lapkin-Byrne is a businesswoman and politician. In 1992, she became the first woman elected to the United States House of Representatives from the Commonwealth of Virginia. Congresswoman Byrne was the first sponsor of the resolution designating May 11, 1994 as Vietnam Human Rights Day. Please welcome Ms. Byrne.
Xin chào. Dear friends, and you, after 31 years, I believe you are my friends. I've been here every year, waiting for human rights every year. As many of you have. I know you noticed the fall of Saigon yesterday, and we were very sad. It's a sad occasion. But here in America, I look at it as a new window that opened, because our country, America, is so much richer because of the Vietnamese Americans who came. They showed us about their culture, their love for art, their education values, all of these things they brought with them. And so we should celebrate our immigrants, celebrate our Vietnamese immigrants and all the immigrants that come here. Because you know what? Unless you're Native American, we're all immigrants. We are all immigrants who come here to make this country better. I'm reminded of this Human Rights Day, and I come and point out certain cases that need to be looked into over the years. Excuse me. And I can't sugarcoat this. It's not as good as it was last year. Things are slipping. And they're slipping because of the United States pulling out USAID. It's slipping because we're not on the forefront of trade with Vietnam anymore. We've pulled back from that because of tariffs. Those may not have made progress as fast as we wanted, but they did make progress because we had a voice and some leverage in Vietnam because of those institutions. And now those institutions are folding. And we see it all across the world. Whether it's communism or whether it's fascism, and I've said this before, they're two sides of the same coin, because their job is to take away the rights of their people. The only way they survive is to be powerful and close down the will of their people. Make sure that they don't have the religious freedom. Make sure they don't have the right to vote. Make sure they don't have a voice in their government. These are things that are common to both communists and fascists. And we have to watch this all over the world because it's growing. This is the thing that scares me, and I wish I had a better message today because I've devoted my life to human rights. And I want a better message, and the only way that we can get this message out is for everybody to talk to your neighbors, to your friends, to your church groups, to your synagogues, to your temples, whatever it is, about human rights across the world. The Declaration of Human Rights that was signed in the United Nations in the 40s, 1945-6, was a guarantee to everybody of these basic human rights. And we have to add our voices still to uphold those human rights. Wherever they are abrogated, wherever they are stepped on, we've got to make sure people know. We are the voice of restoring those human rights. We have to be. Because if Vietnam loses their human rights, and all these other nations, we've seen it in Hungary, we're seeing it in Turkey, and yes, we're even starting to see it here. If we don't speak out, they will be gone. And we are, for our children, for our grandchildren, and in some cases for our great-grandchildren, we are saving their future by speaking out and demanding that all citizens of the world, Vietnam and every other country, has the basic human rights that were promised in 1946 in the UN. So I want to say to you, thank you for standing with us. Thank you for being here today. I know that it's a combination of sadness and happiness with yesterday's events. Many of you have strong ties to Saigon and South Vietnam, and I understand that. But your ties to the United States has made us a better country. You have made us a more prosperous country, a more educated country, and I thank you for that. And if I get this right, somebody might give me a prize. Zim Kan Thank you very much.
Thanks you, Ms. Bond, for the speech. And again, today we have only 2 persons recognized the fault Saigon. And you are right that we have to have our voice and bring our voice, make sure that it got to be listened. Vietnam right, human right, if we don't raise our voice, it will soon become a norm, and by the time it's like communism, it's at your front door. And if you just be nice, there's a time to be nice, but there's time to be right. You have to be right, and if you need to raise your voice, we have to raise our voice, or else it will be in your house before you realize it. The following program is the recognitions of the Vietnam Human Rights Group. And Vietnam Human Rights Network is 28 years of advocacy, founded in November 1997 in Little Saigon, California. The Vietnam Human Rights Network, VHRN, brings together individuals and organizations worldwide, united in the missions to protect and promote human rights in Vietnam based on Universal Declaration of Human Rights. For nearly 3 decades, VHRN have focused on 3 key goals. Number 1, raising awareness, translating and distributing international human rights documents in Vietnamese, hosting seminars in Vietnamese communities around the world, publishing annual human rights report in Vietnamese and English in 1909, supporting activists, awaiting the annual Vietnam Human Rights Award to 58 individuals and 6 organizations in Vietnam since 2002, partnering with international groups to recognize media activists through the Sidewalk Reporter Award, providing financial, medical, and legal aid to human rights defenders, participating in Vietnam Human Rights Day at U.S. Senate every year since 1998. Third, international advocacy, the collaborating with major human rights organizations like UN, Amnesty International, and Human Rights Watch, engaging with world leaders, including US and EU officials, attending international conferences such as UN Millennium Forum and World Conference on Democratization in Asia. The Vietnam Human Rights Network remains committed to amplify the voice of those silent in Vietnam and advocating for future rooted in freedom, dignity, and justice. May I have an honor to invite Dr. Tùng Nguyễn, Chairman of Vietnam Human Rights Network, on stage.
First of all, many thanks to Vietnam Human Rights Day. May 11 organization and the organizing committee for this honor today. Because this is the honor for all members of Vietnam Human Rights Network, so please allow me to invite members of the network present today in the room to come forward with me. Hai, Hoa, Engine, Văn, and Bing. Please come forward with me. Very brief. All of them coming from California, except this gentleman outside. Okay, this honor is also for those who have supported our network over the 28 years. Vietnamese compatriots and foreign friends, without your support, we would not have been able to achieve our goal. So many thanks. But that is the first step, a small step in the long journey to achieve our goal. So this requires many efforts and especially many solidarity. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You along with May 11. May 11, 21st year, so this one, the 28 years go with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. May I have the honors to invite Dr. Stephen Sneck, the U.S. Commissions of International Religious Freedoms on stage. Chairman Stephen Sneck served as U.S. Commissions on International Religious Freedom, U.S. CERT. The retired professor and political philosopher, he spent over 30 years at Catholic University of America, where he found the Institute for the Policy Research and Catholic Study. A lifelong advocate for Catholic social justice, Commissioner Sneck have held leadership role with the Catholic Climate Covenant and Catholic Mobilizing Network. He also previously led the Franciscan Action Network and served on President Obama White House Advisory Council for the Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnership. Please welcome Chairman Stephen Sneck.
Good afternoon, everybody. As you just heard, I currently serve as chair of the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom, or USERF as it's often called. And I'm honored to be here today with you as we celebrate or as we memorialize Vietnam Human Rights Day, a day to remember the importance of advancing fundamental freedoms, including the freedom of religion or belief, commonly referred to as FOR. It's a day to mourn again for those in Vietnam who have been persecuted and denied their rights because of their religious beliefs. I'm gratified today to see so many familiar faces around the room, people I've come to know and respect in our mutual efforts over the last few years to speak out for freedom of religion or belief in Vietnam. In the moments that I have to speak, I'd like to highlight some of the Commission's work. As many of you know, USERF is an independent bipartisan agency of our government, created about 25 years ago. And our job is to monitor religious freedom worldwide, using international standards, in fact, specifically using the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, which has been mentioned already. And in so doing, we also make policy recommendations to the United States President, the Secretary of State, and Congress, and other parts of our government where freedom of religion ought to be of concern. Each year we release an annual report that assesses religious freedom conditions in countries that we determine to be the worst violators of religious freedom. And since 2002, we have recommended to the United States Department of State that Vietnam be designated as a country of particular concern. This is our worst possible category. It means that we find Vietnam to be among the worst countries in the world in regards to religious freedom. As this year's report from USERF details, the Commission remains extremely concerned about the systematic, ongoing, and egregious violations of religious freedom that are occurring. Vietnamese authorities often threaten, harass, physically attack, detain, and imprison individuals merely because of their religious beliefs. Additionally, in some instances, they have forced individuals to renounce their faith. Vietnamese government continues to enforce, for example, the 2018 law on belief and religion and its implementing decrees that strictly control religious affairs of all of its citizens. Among other things, this dangerous law allows authorities to demand financial records from religious organizations and to suspend religious activities of churches for vague offenses. The government also routinely seizes religious property, outlaws independent religious groups. In particular, the government has continued to persecute the independent and unregistered religious groups of the country, such as the Cao Dai, the Hua Ho Buddhists, the Khmer Krom Buddhists, the Hmong, and the Montagnard Christians. Among these examples, it's clear that if someone does not belong to the state-sponsored religious organizations in Vietnam, they are at risk of being targeted by the government. Such individuals often find themselves monitored and pressured to join state-sanctioned religious groups. Now, last September, USCIRF released a report titled, and I'm quoting here, State-Controlled Religion and Religious Freedom in Vietnam. This report from our organization highlights how the Communist Party of Vietnam uses 6 state-controlled religious organizations to restrict religious freedom in the country. These restrictions imposed by the Vietnamese government on independent religious groups clearly infringe on their religious freedom. Individuals should be allowed to practice their faith without having to seek approval from any government. In addition, in our annual report, the Commission maintains a list, a database, of victims around the world who have suffered religious persecution. As of December 24th of last year, that list includes over 80 prisoners whom the Vietnamese government has punished for their religious activities or their religious freedom advocacy. And unfortunately, as we've heard as well, these situations continue to deteriorate. This list continues to grow. We are particularly concerned that ethnic Montagnard and Hmong Christians in the Central and Northwest Highlands remain targets of such persecution, facing detention, arrest, imprisonment, torture, and sometimes being forced to renounce their faith. In March 2024 of last year, preacher Y Bun Bia was found dead hanging from a tree after police summoned him to meet. Previously, local authorities threatened, beat, and pressured him to renounce his faith. Indeed, USCIRF is concerned about the ongoing repression of all religious groups in Vietnam, and will continue to monitor and to highlight the Vietnamese government's violations of religious freedom. Specifically today, we call on the United States Congress to advocate for religious freedom improvements in Vietnam by emphasizing the release of religious prisoners of conscience and by reintroducing relevant legislation such as the Vietnam Human Rights Act, House Resolution 3172. We also urge the administration to prioritize religious freedom in its foreign policy toward Vietnam, to ensure religious freedom and related human rights are not sidelined amidst geopolitical, economic, or security concerns. We also call on the administration to reassess the 2005 U.S.-Vietnam binding agreement to determine whether or not Vietnam's backsliding in religious freedom is a violation of the terms of that agreement. Additionally, we call on the U.S. Department of Commerce to link the removal of Vietnam's non-market economy status with substantive improvements in religious freedom. I want to close today by thanking the Organizing Committee on Vietnam Human Rights Day for putting this event together and for inviting the Commission to be part of your commemoration. Your coalition's work is vital for the advancement of religious freedom and human rights in Vietnam. So, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, thank you for the opportunity to speak. Religious freedom is vital for the people of Vietnam. Thank you.
In regarding to religious freedom, we as a Vietnamese community haven't heard a lot about Thích Minh Tuệ. And he's become an iconic just because he just simply want to practice Buddhism ways of meditating. And because of that, a person who don't need any money, no house, no asset, nothing. He just simply want to go through his practicing. And because of that, he become very famous. And the reason he become very famous is because it's exposed the level of corruption and how the communist regime planning their people to not only divide the society, but also misguided the people practicing Buddhism. And because of that, they try their best to stop him every step of the way. And today, I have an honor to stay here and bring that up to all of you. And hopefully the work will hurt us. We'll look into how communists is suppressing the religious freedom. Today, Thích Minh Tuệ ended his journey in India successfully, but continue to be interrupted and facing the destructions of the communism force behind the scene. So hopefully you all will hear and bring it up to this boards of some way, somehow, and hope that to make it right. The next questions, I would like to invite the Venerable Thích Minh Viet. Thích Minh Viet is a respected Vietnamese Buddhist monk and human rights advocate. He has long been active in promoting religious freedom, peace, and democracy for Vietnam. As a senior member of Unified Buddhist Church of Vietnam, he has represented the Vietnamese Buddhist community in international forums and worked tirelessly to defend spiritual and civil liberty for those under religious persecution. Please invite Thích Minh Viet.
Thank you very much introducing me. Good afternoon. I'm so happy to be here with you at the big moment, very meaningful day for the Vietnam, the human rights for Vietnam. Dear distinguished guests, as a Buddhist monk and spiritual leader of the Vietnamese American Unified Buddhist Church, I speak today not only for myself, but on behalf of millions of Vietnamese believers who continue to suffer in silence. Religious freedom is not a privilege to be granted or revoked by the state. It is a universal right, yet in Vietnam, that right is crushed under the heel of authoritarian control. The U.S. Department has placed Vietnam on its special watch list for 2 consecutive years. The U.S. Commission on international religious freedom has again urged the designation of the Vietnam as a country of particular concern due to its systematic and egregious violence of religious freedom. The Unified Buddhist Church of Vietnam has been banned for over 40 years. 40 years. Its temple have been confiscated, its venerable monks harassed and imprisoned, and its leaders, like the late most Venerable Thích Huyền Quang and Thích Quảng Độ, these two religious leaders very well known around the world, placed under house arrest for decades simply for refusing to submit to communist control. The regime demands that all faiths kneel before the party, but our faith teaches us to kneel only before truth and compassion. We therefore respectfully urge Congress to 1. Support the CPC designation for Vietnam. CPC is a country's particular concern. Number 2, introduce and co-sponsor the Vietnam Human Rights Act of the 2025 with targeted sanctions on abusers. 3, urge the administration to vote against Vietnam's 2026 bid for the United Nations Human Rights Council. These actions are not acts of the hostility. They are acts of consent. They affirm that the international community does not turn away when temples are destroyed, when monks are imprisoned, and when the freedom to worship is criminalized. The United Buddhist Church of Vietnam continue to stand without compromise, without violence, and without fear, as a moral voice for human dignity and non-violence resistance. We ask you to stand with us. As a Buddhist, I believe in compassion, but compassion is not passive. It requires moral clarity and moral courage. Thank you for listening. Thank you for standing with those who are persecuted for their faith. Thank you for your listening. Have a great day.
Chúng con cảm ơn Thầy Huyền Việt. Our next guest is going to be Father Joseph Thong Văn Nguyễn. His journey from communist Vietnam to American priesthood is a testament of faith and resilience. Raised in a devout Catholic family, he founded a Catholic Student Association in Hanoi and was arrested for advocating religious freedom. At 26, he fled to the US, where he deeply his faith and spoke against the human rights abuse, even testifying before Congress. In 2017, he entered seminary and studied at St. John Paul II, Mount St. Mary on June 15, 2024. He was ordained as a priest and Archdiocese of Washington, pledging to serve God fully. Chúng con kính mời cha Thông.
Good afternoon. This is not homily. I am Father Thong Nguyen, a newly ordained priest of Archdiocese of Washington. So, because I'm newly ordained priest, please be patient and be merciful to me too. Thank you. It's an honor to be here with you today. Together, we speak up for freedom of religion and human rights in Vietnam. I was arrested by the communist government in 2009 because I went to Tam Toa Parish, Diocese of Vinh, to help the persecuted Christian over there. And I also have persecuted Christian in Thái Hà Parish in Hanoi, Dong Chiêm Parish, and Kon Dầu Parish in Diocese of Da Nang. And then I faced many difficulties with the communist government. With the will of God, I was able to escape Vietnam to Laos, to Thailand, and thanks to the Lord, I arrived in the US. In 2016, I was granted political asylum. And listening to the God's call, and I entered the seminary. I was ordained for the Diocese of Washington 10 months ago. Now I'm serving at the Our Lady Star of the Sea in the Solomons, Maryland. If you have the chance, please come to visit our parish. Coming here with you today, and today is the feast of the Saint Joseph Worker, and also the anniversary of beatification of Pope St. John Paul II, who spoke up for freedom of religion. And we together, and we thank to the Lord for the gift of the freedom of religion and human rights. And we thank to the Lord for the gift of creation. And freedom of religion is a gift from God. As a Catholic priest, I pray psalms every day. And I love the psalm. The psalmist prays this: "O God, you are my God, for you I long." Every one of us, although we are different religion, but we believe we have a creator. And creator longing for creator. And this is right. However, the communist government takes this right and this gift from our people, from Vietnam. And people do not have right to practice their faith. And today we come together We speak up for people in Vietnam who are voiceless. And we also to give thanks to the Lord for the gift of freedom of religion. And here in the United States of America, and here we have freedom. We need to take our responsibility and to speak up for those who are still living in Vietnam. They do not have right. The church always encourage people to Pope John 23rd, Saint John 23rd, Pope Pio IX, and Pope Pius XII always speak up for freedom of religion. Especially in 1955, Pope Pius IX recognized the rise of the communism, and they did not respect freedom of religion and human dignity. So why today, May 1st, Pope Pius XII declares Saint Joseph as a patron of the church and Saint Joseph the worker. So remind us to continue to work for freedom. Before I leaving my parish to come here, and I celebrate the Mass with the people over there. And I told with people, our people, Jesus says, Heavenly Father is working. So we are at work. So we continue to work for freedom of religion and human rights in Vietnam. And thank you for senators, congressmen, and commission, and for those who love for the people in Vietnam. Thank you very much for your work. And I also thank you for all of you here, example for me, young people. I recognize Tiến sĩ Nguyễn Đặng Đình Thắng because I see his work and he have done many good things promoting the religious freedom and human rights in Vietnam. And thank you all. Cháu xin cảm ơn quý ông bà, quý cô bác và quý anh chị. God bless you.
I would like to reiterate a little bit in American culture or Christian culture. As he said, human right is God-given right. You are your sovereignty and nobody else. So, thank you, Father. Thank you so much to be the voice. Next, I would like to invite and have an honor to bring Colonel Phương Nguyen. Colonel Phương Nguyen has served in U.S. Army officer since 2002, beginning as a chemical officer and graduate of Texas A&M and Webster University. He is currently attending the Army War College in Pennsylvania. His career spanned deployment to Afghanistan,